Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy, Boulanger. And up next on the GM, Lamar Jackson and the sports media. Do me a quick favor, hit like. If it is your first time checking out the GM, hit subscribe. Also, hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's talk about it. This conversation probably has been had a couple of different times by me. And because I'm sick and tired of it, we're going to have it again. And that conversation is, why does the sports media seem to hate Lamar Jackson? And this may be tackled in two parts because it could be a lengthy conversation. I'm asking this question to Ravens Nation, Ravens content creators, Lamar Jackson fans, and just NFL fans as a whole. Why? Why does national sports media seem to hate on a guy who has good character? He doesn't get in trouble off the field. He's a winner. And he just seems like an all around nice guy. But national sports media and sometimes even local sports media seem to have a difficult time really paying him a real compliment, really having any real words of affirmation and validation about him. And I say real words because a lot of times, no matter who you listen to, whether it's Speak, First Things First, First Take, Undisputed, or some other national show, sometimes a local show, they don't really seem to give him a real compliment. It always seems like a backhanded compliment, like, I'm going to say this good about you, but let me make sure I point out some negative, right? So it's kind of like if they say Lamar Jackson is the leading candidate for the MVP. But then they go back and say, well, he's never got it done in the playoffs. Well, how does one have anything to do with another? One is a past situation, the other is a right now situation where he may be on the precipice of winning the MVP. You see, and when you look, no matter who you look at, they don't really pay Lamar Jackson real credit, especially like they do some of the other quarterbacks. You always seem to hear about Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes. They're all good quarterbacks. As a matter of fact, Pat Mahomes is a great quarterback. Jalen Hurts, and as of this year, you hear about Dak sliding up into that upper echelon of the quarterback, so on and so forth. And Lamar Jackson is always slotted somewhere between 4 and 5 when they talk about the best quarterback, sometimes six, depending on who's doing the talking. And the conversation kind of goes from quarterbacking to the style of quarterbacking. Well, quarterbacking is quarterbacking. Whether I throw it from the pocket in a traditional fashion, or I escape the pocket and throw it downfield, or I escape and run the ball. Quarterbacking is quarterbacking. If I line up behind center, if a person lines up behind center and gets the ball on 100% of the snaps before he hands it off or throws it, that's called a quarterback. But it just seems to be some extra criticism and condemnation to Lamar Jackson and what he does at the quarterback position. You see, the question is, why? Why, when he's won basically 70, excuse me, 79, 80% of his games? Why are we still 6 years in having a first year quarterback conversation? Why are we 6 years in having a second year quarterback conversation? We can see over and over and over where Lamar Jackson, no matter what style of play you call him, he's still gotten it done. Still gotten it done. Yes, he may be 1-3 in the playoffs, but we also have to take into consideration that his first year, he stepped in for Joe Flacco in week number 9 and led that team to the playoffs. A team, I might add, that was going nowhere. And that wasn't the Justin Herbert Chargers that he beat. That was the veteran laden Chargers led by Philip Rivers. Excuse me, that he lost to. Forgive me. The second year when he won the MVP, they ran through the league, went 14-2. He led the league in passing and had all kind of great accomplishments. Threw for over 3,000, ran for over 1,200, all those kind of things. The league at that point had not figured out what he was doing and what he brought to the table, and so they ran up against the Tennessee Titans again, another veteran-heavy team who had a game plan to shut down the Ravens' offense. Now, I'm gonna go somewhere a little deeper in this part two of this video. And then, they beat the Tennessee Titans in 2020, and then they ran up against the Buffalo Bills and they lost. And then we understand in 2021, he was hurt. In 2022, he got hurt. But then the questions began. Well, is Lamar Jackson injury prone? Well, let me ask you a question. Do they say that same thing about Joe Burrow? You haven't heard one iota of a conversation if Joe Burrow was injury prone. Joe Burrow did tear his ACL in his rookie year. It missed a good part of the season. Joe Burrow had a wrist injury, I believe it was this year, and had surgery and missed the rest of the season. But you have not heard, is Joe Burrow injury prone? But Lamar Jackson receives a lower body injury and misses the rest of the season. Now the question becomes, is he injury prone? Is Jalen Hurts injury prone? He's been hurt a couple of times over the last couple of seasons. Last year, it cost him the MVP because he was at one point the leading candidate. So is he injury prone? No, you don't hear that conversation about him. So what is it about Lamar Jackson that sports media doesn't like? You see, they're always comparing him, and it's not even really a comparison, in fact. It's really more of a leveling system. They've taken and put Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, Joe Burrow up here. And you've heard some conversations, I know you have, you've heard some conversations where I say, hey, I'll take Justin Herbert over Lamar Jackson. Now I'll take Trevor Lawrence over Lamar Jackson, which would mean just in the AFC, Lamar Jackson would be the sixth most preferred quarterback. But when you take into consideration what those other guys have actually done, there's no comparison. There's absolutely no comparison. Trevor Lawrence has done nothing in the league thus far. Justin Herbert has done nothing in the league so far. Joe Burrow made it to a Super Bowl but lost. So, what does a runner-up Super Bowl uh, bid get you? Nothing. Nothing. So, what has Joe Burrow done? But miss a good part of 2 seasons out of 4. What has Josh Allen really done in this league? He threw for a lot of yards. But other than that, what has he really accomplished? See, the only guy that they could really say is much, much better in a context of accomplishment than Lamar Jackson is only Patrick Mahomes, and that's in the entire league. That's in the right now active league. You cannot really say anybody is more accomplished, translation better than Lamar Jackson than no other than Patrick Mahomes. That's it. That's it. I'm not including, super old guys like Aaron Rodgers, who's on more at the end of his career. I'm not including guys like a Russell Wilson, who's closer to the end of his career. I'm I'm talking about Lamar Jackson's immediate contemporaries, but he's always preferred last. Maybe we can chalk it up to style of play. Maybe we can just say that people would rather have the 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" QB who stands in the pocket and throws the ball. Maybe they prefer that than a quarterback who can scramble and run with the ball and those kind of things. I'm not sure, but what I do know is I'm not letting people get away with foolishness. When I come out and talk about Lamar Jackson, I'm talking about a moment or I'm talking about a game where he could have been better, where he should have been better. Why? Because if I believe Lamar Jackson is great, then my metric for Lamar Jackson is greatness. But when you see these sports pundits measure Lamar Jackson, it's not measuring him on greatness. They're measuring him on a leveling system based on other quarterbacks who have not done what he's done in this league. I want you to listen to a guy that I'm going to call a knucklehead, Stu Gatz. This recording is basically from a week ago, give or take, but I ran across it on accident. I don't really go looking for content, but when something really gets, let me give a nice word, when something really gets under my skin, I have to speak on it. And this video, this audio you're going to hear really gets under my skin. So take a listen to it, and I'm gonna have some commentary about it. Let's listen.
Stugatz has been wanting all week. He's got something for Lamar Jackson. I don't know what it is,
Right.
but I've been waiting for it all week, and you have stumbled in here, soaked in medicine and eager to tell Lamar Jackson something that has not been said by anyone.
Every year, Dan, you know I like to do this right around playoff time. I like to list the quarterbacks that have the most amount of pressure on them. And this year, I don't care what happens this weekend, this year, that quarterback is Lamar Jackson. Everything has broken correctly for Lamar Jackson. And if you want to be considered one of the elites, 2 MVPs before the age of 26, not going to do it. You have everything right in front of you. Everything is there for the taking. You have the number 1 seed. You have the bye week. You have 2 home games to make it to the Super Bowl. You have the Chiefs, a team that has been great for the last 7 or 8 years. They are down. You have no Joe Burrow. If you get to the Super Bowl, you're likely going to play Brock Purdy or Jared Goff.
Now let me jump in here and talk my talk just for 1 second. Let's take this guy's commentary into consideration, and then I'm going to counsel his words with his own words. Number 1, he says everything is broken right for Lamar Jackson, right? Giving an indication that it's not going to be easier to win a Super Bowl this year than any other year, okay? But what does he mean? Well, he goes on to say, well, the Baltimore Ravens have the number 1 seed and in the first round bye, and they only have to win 2 home games to end up in a Super Bowl. Well, here's a question. How did Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens get there? Did somebody just fly them to the top of the AFC? Absolutely not. We lined up, or they lined up 17 teams, and we knocked down 13 of them. That's how we ended up in the number 1 seed with the bye week and 2 home games to get to a Super Bowl. Then he goes on to say, you have the Kansas City Chiefs who are down this year. That's on them. That's on them. They made decisions with their roster. They made decisions with their personnel that now they have to figure out how to adjust to. That's not on us. That's on them. Okay? And then he goes on to say, and if he makes it to the Super Bowl, then he'll just have to play Brock Purdy or Jared Goff. Well, here's a real question. If who he believes to be better than Lamar Jackson are Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, and Josh Allen, and I'm pretty sure he puts other people above Lamar Jackson as well. Here's a question. If Patrick Mahomes is in the playoffs and Josh Allen's in the playoffs, and they have the same field of competition as Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, then if they're better, then wouldn't it be even more easier for them? Wouldn't it be more easier for them to get through this playoff landscape and win a Super Bowl? But no, it must just be exclusively easier for Lamar Jackson. It sounds like there's an agenda operating here. And by the way, for the dude who opens up and introduces Stu Gatz to this opportunity to speak, he says he has something to say that's not been said before. That's a lie. If you turn on every sports media show over the last 6 months, you hear very similar commentary as what he's spewing out of his mouth right now. This is not new perspective. This is not some type of commentary that's unknown to anybody else but this guy. You see, it's not, because the whole sports world, and sometimes even local sports in Baltimore, has this same Lamar Jackson's not enough perspective. No matter what he does, that's the perspective. So this dude is not bringing new commentary to us. He's not. He's saying the same old thing. He just now said is saying it before the playoffs. But if it's easy for Lamar Jackson to win the Super Bowl, then it has to be easier for Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Let's listen a little bit more.
If not now, when for Lamar Jackson? And if he wants us to stop excluding him from elite quarterback conversations, then he has to get it done this year. Because, Dan, I am telling you, it will never be easier this year, ever, in his entire career, than it will be for him this year. He has it all right in front of a bad Dolphin team, a team that's down, that's injured. He has the Chiefs and Mahomes, they're down. No Joe Burrow. Dan, this is the year. They are an overwhelming favorite to make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And I am telling Lamar Jackson right now, if you want me to include you in top tier quarterback conversations moving forward, you better get it done this season. All right. Going in the Super Bowl. There it is.
So let's finish considering this guy's commentary. He keeps making the point that it's going to be so easy for Lamar Jackson, or should be so easy for Lamar Jackson to make it to the Super Bowl and win it, that they're overwhelming favorites. Based on what? You still have to be able to beat the team that's in front of you. You see, it's always interesting when you hear certain kind of conversations, because this is not the first time that I've heard somebody say that this should be the easiest path. I also heard some of the more national, the more notable sports shows say the same thing. But do you know why they're doing this? Do you know why this guy Stu Gatz is saying what he's saying? Because they're moving the goalpost. What he is absolutely doing, with no shadow of a doubt, by saying that it's easy and indicating earlier that he would have to play Jared Goff or Brock Purdy. He's setting it up so that if Lamar Jackson gets to the Super Bowl and wins it, now they can add the caveat that it was the easiest path to a Super Bowl. That's exactly what they're doing. That's why he's saying what he's saying. But see, here's the real truth. If it's so easy, then that means Patrick Mahomes ain't that great. If it's so easy, that means Josh Allen isn't that great. If it's so easy, that would mean that the San Francisco 49ers were not that good. Because see, these are the same players and teams that they've propped up all year long. Matter of fact, Josh Allen was a sneaky MVP candidate because he won the last 5 games of the season. This is the same Buffalo team that he didn't mention, by the way, same Buffalo team who also played themselves into the number 2 seed, the same team that another sports show was talking about what's the most dangerous. You see, these sports pundits and guys that think they know so much, they talk out of both sides of their mouths, and I'm sick of it. You see, they're vultures is what they are. Well, Boulanger, what do you mean by vultures? Well, it's because they keep picking that and eating that and flying around a dead argument. The things that he's saying and the things that the other shows have been saying, that conversation is already dead. It's not new. You see, now it's time for people to update their conversation. How about let's just talk about 2023, and now that we're in 2024, how about we talk about that? You see, because if I go back and do revisionist history, then what I have to do is look at every quarterback that these guys are trying to pit against Lamar Jackson. Well, you know what? Since I'm already in mode, let's do that. Patrick Mahomes, top of the mountain. So I'm not even going to talk about Patrick Mahomes. But let's do the other guys that I just heard this week are elite, and Lamar Jackson is on the tier below. It was Patrick Mahomes, top of the mountain, can't mention him. Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. Those are the best three quarterbacks in the league per many conversations this week. Okay, so let's take Joe Burrow for example. Since this guy, Stu Gotts, wants to keep mentioning Joe Burrow, well, number one, we're the gatekeepers for the Cincinnati Bengals. The Baltimore Ravens, we're the gatekeepers. We see them twice a year, every year. And when we smack them around and put them back in their place, they have to come ask permission. Can they play themselves into the playoffs? So let's stop talking about this playoff series, this playoff field, not including Joe Burrow and the Bengals. Simply because we grant access to the playoffs for the Bengals. That's number one. Number two, to indicate and show how talented the Bengals are, the backup quarterback almost led them to the playoffs. Is that correct? With the same weaponry that Joe Burrow had. All Joe Burrow has done since his second year in the league is play with the best trio of wide receivers in the entire NFL. So he should ball out. There should be nothing less that he do than ball out with that trio. Let's jump to Josh Allen. What has Josh Allen really done? He doesn't have any MVPs. He has not won a Super Bowl. So what are we talking about? We're just talking about stats at this point. But what did the Buffalo Bills go and do when Josh Allen had more questions about his game than answers? They went out and got him a number one wide receiver, right? And Josh Allen has not looked the same since Buffalo went and got and added Stephon Diggs. In a preseason quarterback ranking, they had Lamar Jackson slotted at number 7 behind Jalen Hurts. Well, let's talk about Jalen Hurts. What did Philadelphia do for Jalen Hurts? One, they built the best offensive line in the league. Then they drafted Devontae Smith, a top 10 wide receiver, meaning in that draft. And then they went and traded for A.J. Brown. So he should absolutely ball out 100%. You should not expect anything less. So when you're playing with an upper echelon of talent, then why wouldn't you ball out as a quarterback? Let's keep going. Let's go to Justin Herbert, who for the last 3 years, people have tried to say top five, top five, top five as it pertains to Justin Herbert. Well, what has Justin Herbert done? He's thrown for a lot of yards, but he doesn't even have a single playoff victory to show for it. Because that San Diego, excuse me, yeah, it was San Diego back then. Because that San Diego Chargers team that beat Lamar Jackson in his first rookie year in the playoffs was led by Philip Rivers. Because Justin Herbert hasn't got to the uh, uh, league yet. So what is Justin Herbert playing with? He's playing with a Pro Bowl level running back, and he's playing with two good wide receivers in Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So why wouldn't he throw for a lot of yards? Why wouldn't he ball out? You should expect anything less. Let's go grab Trevor Lawrence, who they keep trying to put into top 5, and he's elite and or on the verge of elite. The Jacksonville Jaguars have done nothing more than add talent and add talent and add talent, which is what a good organization is supposed to do for their franchise guy. But what did he do this year? Around week 8 and 9, they had a 93% chance of winning their division and making the playoffs. And now, do you see them playing this year? You absolutely do not. In fact, you see the Houston Texans up 24-14 right now on the Cleveland Browns. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars may have blown their opportunity to force open a Super Bowl window with this rookie and CJ Stroud looking like a flat out superstar. Now, so when you take those guys, you keep saying Lamar's under them, Lamar's under them, Lamar's under them. You know what it comes down to? Style of play preference. That's what it has to come down to. Because it must not be about wins. Because Lamar Jackson wins at a higher rate than any of those other guys, other than Mahomes. So it can't be about wins. It can't be about putting the whole team on his back and carrying it, because he's definitely done that. And they definitely don't take talent around the quarterback into consideration because Lamar Jackson has continued to do more with less. For goodness sakes, like I mentioned many times before, in 2019, Willie Snead and Seth Roberts were his number one and two wide receivers, and he took and won the MVP with those guys. And right now, he's playing with a bottom 10 wide receiving group. I said that in the preseason, and a lot of people came at me. When you go and break down the numbers of what the wide receivers have versus what the tight ends have, you'll see that this wide receiver group is a bottom 10. See, what happened was people fell in love with the name Odell Beckham Jr. He still can play, but he's no longer great. You see, people, oh, the Baltimore Ravens, they upgraded Lamar Jackson's wide receiving group. Well, they should have, because he was playing with mop buckets and squeegees and making it work. I mean, for goodness sake, they brought him a washed up Sammy Watkins. I mean, it got so bad, they brought him Deshaun Jackson. Remember, they tried to squeak in and slide in Dez Bryant. These are the people the Baltimore Ravens have brought to Lamar Jackson, and he's done nothing more year after year after year than to keep his team at the top of the AFC. Not the AFC North alone, but the AFC. And until he went down in 21 and 22, he was at the top then too. Go back and check the record. So when these guys just keep opening their mouth and talking foolishness, I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. You see, because if you're going to take what a quarterback does into consideration, you also have to take into consideration what that quarterback is playing with. See, don't denigrate now Brock Purdy because he's come down and show you that, you know what, he's mostly an average dude, which is okay, but he got flat out studs all around him. And then when you talk about, Jared Goff, you're gonna play. He might have to play him in the Super Bowl. Well, you know what? Uh, Jared Goff has the best rookie tight end who's ever come into the league based on his stats, and he has a number one in St. Brown, and a solid run game, and a solid offensive line, and a solid defense, especially the front. So don't denigrate these guys now. But do you know why they denigrate them? To take away from what Lamar Jackson has done and what he has the potential to go and do. Because when you lined every single one of those guys up and their teams, when you lined Detroit up when they were flying high and people were talking about Jared Goff possibly being in the MVP conversation, the Baltimore Ravens smacked around the Detroit Lions. When the Los Angeles Rams started gearing up and started playing well, we went into LA in the pouring rain and beat them too. Then we lined up against the San Francisco 49ers and smacked them around. Then we lined up against the Miami Dolphins and we smacked them around too. That's why they're trying to take away any type of reasoning why the Baltimore Ravens should not win the Super Bowl. That's why they're saying things like, well, he got to get it done this year if you want to be considered in the elite. Well, Lamar Jackson never asked the media to do anything for him. You see, and I would never see him go and ask the media to talk about him in a glowing light. You know why? Because no matter what he's done, they've always tried to take away any kind of shine that he has had. And I'm no longer gonna let that fly. Every time I hear it, I'm not gonna go searching for it, but every time I hear it, I'm gonna come at him and address it because it's dumb and it's foolish and it's silly. Because they never go at when Lamar Jackson got hurt the last 2 years, they start saying, "Oh, he must be injury prone." But Joe Burrow has missed 2 of his first 4 years, meaning not a full season. Never heard a comment about Joe Burrow being injury prone. Never heard. When Josh Allen is throwing interceptions in clutch, right? Never question, can Josh Allen really get it done? If they do, it's for a game and then they move forward. But let Lamar Jackson only have one playoff win, or let Lamar Jackson have a 1-3 record in the playoffs. Then they'll bring up this old 3 and 4 year old argument that should already be dead. But here's the truth: since Lamar Jackson isn't elite, I wonder. I'm gonna pose this question. I'm out. I wonder, could Joe Burrow have done what Lamar Jackson done if you just switch? You just switch. Would if you just Do you think Joe Burrow would take two of Lamar Jackson's? We're not going to include Zay, but any other of Lamar Jackson's two wide receivers. Do you think Joe Burrow would trade Jamar Chase for two of Lamar Jackson's receivers? I don't think so. Do you think Josh Allen would trade Stephon Diggs for two of Lamar Jackson's receivers? Probably not. Do you think Justin Herbert or Trevor Lawrence would trade? Do you think Jalen Hurts would trade A.J. Brown for two of Lamar Jackson's receivers? No, they would not, which says if Lamar Jackson has won more than these guys with less talent, that sounds pretty dadgum elite to me. What do you guys think? I'm done with this conversation. It's stupid, it is ignorant, and I'm going to take aim at anybody who opens their mouth with this derogatory, ignorant, nonsensical argument going forward. I'm out.